The F-35 is not the most advanced fighter jet the United States has. Neither is the F-22. Those aircraft are what the public is allowed to know about, and there's a difference between those two things that most people never stop to think about. Right now, something called the F-66 is allegedly being tested at a facility that doesn't appear on any official map, with a propulsion system that has nothing to do with burning jet fuel. The reported price tag is $3.2 billion per unit, not $3 billion, not 3.5. 3.2, the kind of specific number that doesn't come from a guess. By the end of this video, you'll understand what that designation means, why that price makes sense, and why the propulsion concept behind this aircraft isn't science fiction. It's classified science. The next window for air dominance isn't opening. It may already be closing, and the countries that aren't flying something like this won't know it until it's too late to catch up. Start with how the numbering actually works. Military aircraft designations in the US don't just count upward in a straight line. The F-22 and F-35 exist in the same generational bracket. Both fifth generation, both developed through programs that went through Congress, both funded through budget lines that lobbyists, contractors, and foreign governments could track if they looked hard enough. When a designation jumps to F-66, that's not an upgrade. That's a separate pipeline entirely. Programs developed at that classification level don't go through the standard acquisition process. They get funded through what's commonly called the black budget, spending that gets approved in broad strokes without line-item transparency. The SR-71 Blackbird operated for years before the public knew it existed. The F-117 Nighthawk flew combat missions before it was officially acknowledged. The B-2 Spirit was deep into development before a single contractor outside the cleared program could confirm it was real. The F-66 designation, if it's genuine, fits that exact pattern. The TR-3B is worth mentioning here because it set a precedent that defense researchers still reference. For years, it was treated as fringe speculation, a triangular craft with alleged non-conventional propulsion, spotted repeatedly near military test ranges. The US government never confirmed it. They also never explained what people were seeing. That's a specific kind of non-denial that shows up around programs the government wants to neither validate nor kill off entirely, because killing it off means explaining why. The $3.2 billion figure works the same way. Round numbers are estimates. Specific numbers come from somewhere. A procurement document, a cleared contractor's internal budget, or a deliberate release designed to let adversaries know a capability exists without telling them what it does. Either way, someone with access to real information put that number into circulation. That's not nothing. Area 51's Groom Lake facility isn't a Cold War relic people visit on tourist maps. The restricted airspace around it is still enforced with live intercept protocols, meaning aircraft that stray too close don't just get a radio warning, they get a fighter on their wing within minutes. That level of active enforcement costs money and requires ongoing authorization. You don't maintain that infrastructure for a museum. So what does 7th generation actually mean in practical terms? It's not just a stealth upgrade over the F-22. 6th-gen programs like the Next Generation Air Dominance Platform are already pushing sensor fusion, where the aircraft aggregates data from satellites, drones, and ground stations in real time and presents the pilot with a unified tactical picture instead of raw feeds. 7th generation takes that further. Autonomous teaming with loyal wingman drones, propulsion that operates outside conventional thermodynamic limits, and a sensor suite that turns the aircraft into a mobile intelligence node as much as a weapons platform. The propulsion part is where the F-66 concept breaks from everything in that progression. Every aircraft mentioned so far, the F-22, the F-35, whatever 6th-gen platform eventually gets a name, runs on the same fundamental principle: burn fuel, expand gas, generate thrust. The Brayton cycle. It's been the basis of jet propulsion since the 1940s. The F-66 reportedly doesn't use it, and that's exactly where this stops sounding like an incremental program and starts sounding like something built from a completely different set of assumptions about how flight works. So let's talk about what's actually powering this thing, because this is where the F-66 concept separates itself from every other classified program in the conversation. Every fighter jet flying today, the F-22, the Su-57, the Eurofighter, everything, moves through the air the same way. You compress air, mix it with fuel, ignite it, and the expanding gas pushes the aircraft forward. That's the Brayton cycle, and it's been the ceiling of propulsion engineering for 8 decades. Engineers have gotten extraordinary at working within it, but no one has broken out of it. Not publicly, anyway. Mercury vortex propulsion starts from a different question entirely. Instead of asking how to generate more thrust from combustion, it asks what happens when you spin ionized mercury at extreme rotational velocities inside a contained ring. The physics aren't invented. Ionized mercury and rotating plasma both have documented electromagnetic behavior, and researchers working in magnetohydrodynamics have explored what happens when you push those properties to their limits. The energy interactions get strange at high enough rotation speeds. Mass behavior starts to deviate from what classical mechanics predicts. That's the theoretical foundation the TR-3B concept was built on, and it's the same foundation the F-66 allegedly builds further. The TR-3B, as reported by people who claimed access to the program, used a rotating mercury plasma ring to reduce the craft's inertial mass. Not its physical weight, but its resistance to acceleration and directional change. Conventional thrusters could then move that craft with a fraction of the energy a normal aircraft would require, because you'd already taken most of the inertia out of the equation. The F-66 concept takes that further. What's being described isn't a thruster that reduces inertia as a side effect. It's a system where manipulating the local gravitational gradient around the aircraft is the primary function. The craft doesn't fight gravity and it doesn't ignore it. It reshapes the gravitational field it's sitting inside, which changes how mass and inertia behave for everything within that field envelope. The aircraft's physical mass doesn't change. What changes is how much energy the universe requires to move it. In engineering terms, that shifts every performance calculation you'd normally apply to an aircraft. G-force limits exist because the human body and the airframe experience force as a product of mass times acceleration. Reduce effective inertia, and you reduce the force generated by any given maneuver. A craft operating inside a reduced inertia envelope can execute direction changes at speeds that would destroy a conventional airframe and kill any pilot inside it. At some point, the limiting factor isn't the airframe at all. It's whether a human pilot can stay conscious long enough to be useful, which is exactly why autonomous systems become central to a platform like this, rather than optional additions. DARPA has spent real money on non-conventional propulsion research, and the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program investigated propulsion anomalies specifically, not as fringe curiosity, but as a national security question, because the UAP phenomena feeding into that program included objects displaying acceleration profiles that no known propulsion system could produce. The program's conclusion wasn't that the physics was impossible, it was that more research was needed, which in classified government language means the door stayed open. None of this is confirmation that the F-66 exists or that mercury vortex propulsion has been successfully engineered into a flyable aircraft. What it means is that the theoretical scaffolding isn't hollow. The physics points somewhere real, and the question isn't whether anyone is working it, it's how far along that work actually is. If the propulsion system is what the reports suggest, the airframe built around it would look nothing like any fighter currently in service. And the design choices that follow from it are exactly as strange as you'd expect. A mercury vortex core sitting at the center of an aircraft doesn't just change how it moves. It changes where the mass is, how the aircraft wants to orient itself, and what happens when you try to control it with surfaces designed around conventional aerodynamics. Traditional control surfaces, rudders, elevators, ailerons, all work by deflecting airflow to rotate the aircraft around its center of mass. Shift that center of mass dynamically, the way a spinning plasma ring would, and those surfaces stop being primary controls. They become backup systems at best and dead weight at worst. That's why the F-66 design reportedly abandons vertical stabilizers entirely and uses a flying wing configuration, no tail, no fins, just a single continuous lifting surface with flight control managed through the propulsion system itself rather than external geometry. Flying wing designs aren't new. The B-2 Spirit proved the configuration works, and it's been operational since the 1990s. But the B-2 flies at subsonic and transonic speeds, where airflow behaves predictably and the flight control computers have enough reaction time to keep the unstable airframe from departing controlled flight. A gravitic flying wing pushing hypersonic speeds inside a reduced inertia envelope is a different problem entirely. The aerodynamic forces change character at those speeds, the control margins compress, and any instability that develops does so faster than human reflexes can address. You're not flying it with a stick. You're flying it with software that's reacting in microseconds. And the software has to understand a flight regime that's never been modeled before because no aircraft has ever operated inside one. The stealth profile follows from the same propulsion logic. The F-22's low radar cross-section comes from passive shaping, angles and materials that scatter and absorb radar waves instead of reflecting them back to the source. That's still a fundamentally passive approach, and radar technology has been slowly closing the gap on passive stealth for years. What the F-66 concept introduces is active radar management. A craft generating its own electromagnetic field as part of its propulsion cycle can theoretically tune that field to absorb incoming radar energy rather than scatter it. The aircraft doesn't just look small on radar, it can look like nothing, because it's pulling the signal in rather than deflecting it. Groom Lake was built for programs that don't fit anywhere else. The main runway there stretches well past what any conventional aircraft needs, long enough to accommodate vehicles with unconventional approach speeds and landing characteristics. The restricted airspace extends outward in geometry that gives test aircraft room to run performance profiles without ever leaving controlled airspace. That infrastructure wasn't designed for the aircraft of the 1960s and 1970s. It was designed for whatever came after, and whoever built it clearly expected that something would. Recent satellite imagery from observers tracking the facility shows new hangar structures along the northern edge of the complex and a boundary extension on the eastern restricted zone that happened quietly over the past several years. Neither change has been officially explained. Hangar expansions at Groom Lake don't happen for storage. They happen when something arrives that requires specialized ground handling, temperature-controlled bays, containment systems for materials that aren't safe around standard ground crews, or support equipment sized for an aircraft with dimensions that don't match anything in the public inventory. The $3.2 billion per unit figure starts making sense when you map it against those requirements. Mercury-based fuel systems need containment and handling infrastructure that jet fuel lines can't support. The sensor suite on a platform this far outside normal flight parameters would need custom hardware with no commercial equivalent. Add the ground support, the specialized personnel, and the security infrastructure around a program at that classification level, and $3.2 billion isn't excessive. It might even be conservative. Testing in secret solves one problem. What to do with the secret once testing succeeds? That's a completely different calculation. The timing of whatever is happening at Groom Lake isn't coincidental. China's J-36 and J-50 programs have both produced publicly observable airframe prototypes with 6th-generation geometry, blended flying wing configurations, no vertical stabilizers, sensor apertures distributed across the fuselage skin. Those aircraft aren't operational yet, but the fact that China is flying them in daylight in front of cameras means the development timeline is far enough along that concealment stopped being the priority. Beijing is sending a message about where its program sits, and Washington has to decide how to answer. A gravitic propulsion platform doesn't answer that message by winning a dogfight. It answers it by making the entire framework of contested airspace irrelevant. Air interdiction right now is built around the assumption that even a very stealthy aircraft has to operate within certain physical constraints. Speed limits set by aerodynamics, maneuver limits set by G-force, detection risks that accumulate over time in a defended zone. An aircraft operating inside a reduced inertia envelope with active electromagnetic stealth doesn't share those constraints. Defended airspace that would stop the F-22 or the B-21 cold might not register the F-66 at all. That's not just a tactical advantage, it's a structural one, and it holds even against asymmetric threats. Iran's drone and missile programs have shown that you can saturate conventional air defenses through volume. Enough cheap systems launch simultaneously to overwhelm intercept capacity. A platform with the F-66's alleged performance profile doesn't try to intercept that swarm after launch. It reaches the source before the launch happens. Through airspace, the defending side never saw it enter. The disclosure question follows from all of this. Historically, the US has declassified black programs when keeping them secret costs more than the strategic value of the secret itself. The SR-71 became public partly because the program was maturing and partly because the Soviets already knew roughly what it could do. A controlled leak serves a different purpose. It lets adversaries understand a capability exists without revealing the operational details that make it work. The $3.2 billion figure in the F-66 designation circulating in defense research circles right now may be doing exactly that job. Not a mistake, a signal. Whether the F-66 is already flying test profiles over the Nevada desert or still years from its first sortie, the physics underneath it are real enough that every serious aerospace program on the planet is working some version of the same problem. There's a hangar at RAF Wharton in Lancashire that doesn't get talked about much. No press tours, no open days, no carefully staged photo opportunities with politicians standing in front of something they clearly don't understand. Just a building, a lot of security, and work happening behind closed doors that most people will never hear about until it's too late to be surprised. Meanwhile, the defense world keeps its eyes locked on America, the F-47, NGAD, the B-21 Raider making its slow, deliberate public debut. The US runs the loudest program, so it gets the most attention, and Britain just keeps working. But something is being built on that side of the Atlantic that doesn't show up cleanly in parliamentary budget lines or BAE Systems press releases. Defense analysts who watch classified spending patterns have started asking questions about numbers that don't add up. Programs that don't map to anything officially acknowledged. A name that circulates in certain circles, Dark Eagle, attached to a variant of the Tempest program that goes well beyond what anyone has publicly admitted exists. By the end of this video, you'll understand why NATO's air power equation just shifted in a way that almost nobody saw coming. Russia and China have both been watching the Western alliance's next-generation programs closely. Neither of them expected Britain to be the wild card. Most people who've heard of the Tempest file, it's somewhere between the F-35 and a British vanity project. A next-gen fighter, sure, but probably derivative, probably dependent on American technology, probably a decade behind where it needs to be. That framing is wrong on almost every count. The Tempest isn't Britain's answer to the F-35. The F-35 is a fifth-generation aircraft. The Tempest is being built for a completely different threat environment, one where fifth-gen stealth alone isn't enough to survive contact with the systems Russia and China are currently fielding. This is a sixth-generation program, which means the comparison to the F-35 is roughly like comparing a smartphone to a rotary phone, because they both make calls. And it isn't a solo project. The Global Combat Air Program, GCAP, brings Japan and Italy in as full co-development partners, not junior contractors. Japan's participation in particular changes the strategic character of the whole program. You're not looking at a single nation building a capable fighter jet. You're looking at three technologically advanced nations pooling their most sensitive aerospace research into one platform, with a combined industrial base and a shared interest in not depending entirely on Washington for their high-end air combat capability. The publicly confirmed specs alone put it in a different category from anything currently flying. The Tempest is designed from the ground up to operate alongside autonomous, loyal wingman drones, controlling a small fleet of unmanned aircraft while simultaneously managing its own threat responses. The onboard AI isn't a feature added late in development. It's baked into the sensor fusion architecture at the foundation level, pulling from multiple data streams and building a battle space picture faster than any pilot could do manually. Directed energy weapons are part of the original design spec, not a future upgrade option. The power generation system was engineered to support high-energy laser systems from day one. which tells you something about how seriously the program takes what the threat environment looks like in 2035 and beyond. The stealth geometry is worth paying attention to too, because it's different from what the Americans do. U.S. low observable design, think the F-22 and F-35, prioritizes a fixed radar cross-section built into the physical shape of the airframe. BAE's approach for the Tempest leans toward what you'd call adaptive radar cross-section management. The aircraft's electronic systems actively manipulate how it appears to enemy radar rather than relying solely on shape to stay invisible. The distinction matters because fixed-shape stealth can be partially countered with the right radar frequency. Active signature management is a harder problem to solve on the threat side. So 6th Gen for the Tempest isn't primarily about being invisible. It's about owning the electromagnetic space around the aircraft, controlling what every radar and sensor in the battlespace can and can't see, and doing that dynamically while the mission is in progress. That's the public program, the version that shows up in parliamentary testimony and airshow renders and officially sanctioned briefings. There's another version that doesn't appear in any of that, and it's been running longer than most people realize. Black projects in the UK defense world aren't a conspiracy theory framing. They're a real procurement category with a paper trail, even if the paper is mostly redacted. The Ministry of Defense has a formal mechanism for classified development programs, where the budget disappears into a line item that tells Parliament almost nothing about what's actually being funded. Most people assume this is an American specialty. Skunk Works, Area 51, the whole mythology. Britain has been doing the same thing for decades, just more quietly. The clearest recent precedent is Tyrannus. BAE Systems ran a fully autonomous stealth combat drone program for years. Airframe, propulsion, avionics, weapons integration. Before anyone outside the classified program knew it had progressed beyond a design concept. When it finally surfaced publicly, it was already flying. The lessons from Tyrannus didn't vanish when the program wound down. They went somewhere into the next generation of thinking about how an autonomous, low-observable aircraft should actually behave in a contested airspace. That context matters when you start looking at what defense analysts have been flagging in the UK MOD's classified spending figures. There are anomalies. Budget allocations that are too large in scale to be upgrade programs for existing aircraft, and too structured in their year-on-year progression to be basic research spending, which tends to be more irregular. The numbers point toward a sustained, phased development effort on something specific. Nothing in the acknowledged program list accounts for them. This is where the Dark Eagle name enters the picture. It circulates in defense analyst circles, in the kind of conversations that happen at industry conferences, and in specialist publications that don't make the general news cycle. Whether it's an official program designation, an internal nickname, or a label that attaches itself to the program from the outside, nobody who'd know for certain is saying. What the name gets attached to consistently are rumors about a Tempest variant running on a parallel track to the public GCAP timeline, with a capability set that goes beyond what the official program acknowledges. The rumored specifications are worth laying out carefully because some of them are plausible extensions of known development directions and some are harder to evaluate. On the plausible end, an internal weapons bay optimized for long-range standoff strikes, which fits with the broader 6th Gen design philosophy of keeping external stores off the airframe in high-threat environments. Avionics architecture that can operate fully disconnected from any external network, which is a direct answer to the reality that in a near-peer conflict, communication links get jammed or destroyed early. You want an aircraft that doesn't stop functioning when the network goes down. The hypersonic capability claim is the one that sits at the edge of what's currently verifiable. Hypersonic dash in certain flight regimes, not sustained cruise, appears in the same discussions. Given the propulsion work being done on the program, which we'll get into shortly, it's not physically impossible. But it's also the kind of claim that's easiest to attach to a program nobody can verify, so treat it accordingly. What's harder to dismiss is the timeline implication. If a parallel development track has been running since the early stages of the public Tempest program, the official 2035 service entry date for GCAP may describe when the acknowledged version reaches the RAF, not when something is already operational. Tyrannus was flying before anyone outside the program knew to ask whether it was flying. There's no structural reason the same approach couldn't be applied here. The capability choices inside this program stop making sense as pure engineering decisions once you lay them against the specific threats Britain is actually preparing to face. Britain's threat geography is not America's threat geography, and that difference drives almost every decision inside the Tempest program. The North Sea, the Arctic corridor, the Baltic approaches, these are not abstract strategic concepts for the RAF. They're operational realities. Russian long-range aviation probes, British air defense identification zones on a regular basis, the Kola Peninsula, sitting just across the Arctic from NATO's northern flank, hosts some of the densest concentrations of Russian air defense and strike capability on the planet. For American planners, a conflict in Europe is a power projection problem. For Britain, it's a home defense problem with a very short reaction window. Russia's S-500 system changed the calculus for every NATO air force that pays attention to what it can actually do. Unlike earlier generations of Russian surface-to-air missiles, the S-500 is designed to engage targets at extreme altitude and range, including aircraft flying the kind of high-fast profiles that used to provide a margin of safety. The follow-on S-550, focused specifically on hypersonic and space-based targets, pushes that envelope further. Current generation NATO fighters, including the F-35 in certain engagement scenarios, face a real survivability problem against these systems. The Tempest combination of adaptive signature management and electronic warfare capability is specifically architected to operate inside that threat envelope without relying on standoff range as a substitute for genuine survivability. Japan's role in GCAP isn't a diplomatic gesture or a cost-sharing arrangement dressed up as strategic partnership. Japan faces a threat that mirrors Britain's in its structure, even if the geography is completely different. Chinese air power has been expanding in range, capability, and aggression across the Western Pacific. The J-20 is operational, it's being produced at scale, and China has additional sixth-generation programs in development that Japanese defense planners track very closely. Buying American platforms gives Japan capable aircraft, but it doesn't give Japan the ability to shape the platform's development around its own specific operational requirements, and it creates a dependency that becomes a vulnerability the moment Washington's strategic priorities shift westward. A shared sixth-gen program built around a common architecture solves both problems at once. Britain gets the industrial and financial weight of two additional advanced partners. Japan gets a platform it co-owns, co-develops, and can evolve independently. Italy brings its own aerospace engineering depth and a Mediterranean operational perspective that matters for southern NATO. None of them get that from an off-the-shelf American purchase. The Su-57 is flying with Russian units now. The J-20 is flying with Chinese units now. NATO's current inventory was largely designed and procured against a threat environment that existed 20 years ago. The alliance is heavily weighted toward U.S. platforms for any genuinely high-end air combat scenario, and that weight becomes a strategic liability if American attention and resources tilt decisively toward the Pacific, which is exactly what the current geopolitical trajectory suggests is coming. Britain's calculation is specific. A sixth-gen platform with a Black Project capability layer needs to reach operational status before the threat environment matures to the point where it can no longer be answered with an aircraft that's still in development. That's not pessimism about the timeline. It's the reason the timeline is what it is, and it's almost certainly why a parallel track exists at all. The technology being built into this airframe is where that urgency becomes most visible. Start with power. The Tempest's electrical generation system was sized, from the earliest design phase, to feed high-energy laser weapons. Not as a future option, not as a weight penalty the engineers would figure out later. It's load-bearing infrastructure baked into the architecture the same way a carrier's flight deck is built for aircraft, not adapted to them afterward. That decision alone tells you what the program office believes the next air war actually looks like. The AI system BAE has described publicly is worth understanding precisely because it gets mischaracterized a lot. The pilot doesn't hand control to a machine. The pilot sets intent, the target, the mission parameters, the acceptable risk envelope, and the aircraft executes the tactical responses faster than human reaction time allows. A missile launch detected at close range, an electronic attack requiring immediate countermeasures, a split-second maneuver decision in a high-threat environment. The aircraft handles those in the gap between the threat appearing and the pilot's hands moving. The human stays in command of the mission. The machine handles the physics. Propulsion is where the program gets genuinely interesting. The engine work, referenced in some open-source defense documents under the name Orpheus, is targeting a power-to-weight ratio that supports supercruise, sustained supersonic flight without afterburner. That matters for one specific reason. Afterburner produces a massive infrared signature that modern IR-guided missiles can track from long range. An aircraft that can cruise supersonically without lighting that signature is harder to engage with the weapon systems that currently threaten the fast jets most seriously. Whether the hypersonic dash capability in the Dark Eagle rumors connects to a derivative of this propulsion work, nobody outside the program is confirming. But the engineering direction points that way. Sensor fusion at this scale is genuinely new territory. The aircraft pulls data simultaneously from space-based assets, allied platforms, and ground stations, building a live composite picture of the battle space that no single sensor suite could generate alone. The pilot sees more, faster, with better confidence about what's real and what's a decoy or a spoofed return. The Dark Eagle variant, according to what circulates in analyst discussions, trades that networked architecture for something different: full autonomous operation with no external connections required. For missions where transmitting anything is itself a liability, where the network has been jammed or destroyed, or where operating inside an enemy's air defense perimeter means any emission is a targeting cue, you want an aircraft that functions as a closed system. That's a fundamentally different capability from the GCAP baseline, and it requires different avionics design from the ground up. The materials used on the airframe are classified, but open-source defense literature describes radar-absorbent coating characteristics that push beyond what the F-35 currently achieves. Combined with adaptive signature management, the physical and electronic stealth work together rather than compensating for each other's limits. Britain isn't following anyone's lead on this. The Tempest program, and whatever runs beneath it at the classification levels that don't surface in official statements, reflects a country that looked at its specific threat geography, its specific alliance dependencies, and decided to build an answer rather than wait for one. The Dark Eagle name may never appear in an official document. The program it describes almost certainly already exists. Watch the GCAP partnership announcements and the MOD budget anomalies. That's where the real story breaks before it goes public. Somewhere inside a classified hangar, there may already be an aircraft that can reach any city on Earth in under 90 minutes, drop a strike from the edge of space, and land back on a runway before the enemy even confirms what hit them. No government has officially acknowledged it. No journalist has photographed it. And yet China and Iran are restructuring their entire air defense doctrine around the possibility that it's real. That's not speculation dressed up as news. That's the logical conclusion of a pattern that Skunkworks has been running for decades, and it's a pattern worth paying close attention to. What we're talking about is a program that circulated in defense analyst circles under the name Phantom Wing, a black project allegedly developed inside Lockheed's most secretive division, built to operate at the boundary where atmosphere ends and orbit begins, and designed to strike from a domain that no adversary currently has any answer for. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this aircraft, if it exists, doesn't just change the speed of warfare, it changes the entire math adversaries use when they think about confronting the United States. We're going to cover where this program allegedly came from, how orbital strike actually works, why neither China nor Iran can stop it, and what's real versus what's still in the rumor layer. Let's get into it. The SR-71 Blackbird was officially retired in 1998. For 25 years, it held the record as the fastest air-breathing aircraft ever flown, capable of outrunning surface-to-air missiles simply by accelerating away from them. When the Air Force stood those airframes down, The public story was that satellites had made high-speed reconnaissance redundant. Cheaper, safer, no pilot at risk. Lockheed accepted that narrative publicly and kept working privately. That's not a conspiracy framing. That's just what Skunk Works does. The division was built by Kelly Johnson in the 1940s specifically to work outside normal bureaucratic visibility, and every major platform it's produced followed the same arc. Something gets developed in secret, flies operationally for years, and only surfaces publicly when the program has moved far enough along that disclosure, no longer compromises it. The F-117 Nighthawk is the cleanest example. It flew its first operational mission years before the Pentagon acknowledged the aircraft existed. Neighbors near Tonopah Test Range in Nevada were seeing a delta-shaped aircraft in the sky throughout the early 1980s. The official confirmation didn't come until 1988. By that point, the aircraft had already been combat-ready for years. The B-2 Spirit followed the same pattern. The SR-72 followed it too, except in that case, Lockheed themselves broke the silence. In 2013, they published a concept article in Aviation Week describing a hypersonic successor to the Blackbird, targeting Mach 6, built around a combined cycle engine that could handle both subsonic and scramjet regime flight. The reason they disclosed it wasn't because the program was new. It was because the underlying propulsion technology had matured enough that keeping it completely dark was no longer the point. What matters about the SR-72 disclosure is what it implies. Lockheed went public with a Mach 6 reconnaissance and strike aircraft in 2013, which means the development timeline for that system stretches back well before that. And since 2013, Skunk Works has gone almost completely quiet on where that program stands today. That silence is meaningful. The phantom wing concept, as it's circulated among defense analysts and in patent filings tied to advanced propulsion and thermal protection systems, isn't described as a faster version of the SR-72. It's described as a categorically different kind of aircraft, not a hypersonic jet that flies through the upper atmosphere at high speed. Something that climbs above the atmosphere entirely, uses low orbital mechanics to cover distance, and then descends on a target from above at hypersonic velocity during re-entry. That's a different machine. It operates in a different domain, and the defenses that exist to stop conventional aircraft, or even conventional hypersonic missiles, weren't built with this flight profile in mind. To understand why that matters so much, you need to understand what orbital strike actually means mechanically, and why the physics of it are so difficult to defend against. Think about a standard strike mission. An aircraft takes off, flies through the atmosphere at some altitude, crosses into hostile airspace, releases a weapon, and exits. The entire flight path stays inside the same layer of air that weather systems move through. That's the domain every air defense network on Earth is designed to cover. Orbital strike works on completely different geometry. The aircraft climbs steeply after takeoff, burns through the upper atmosphere, and crosses into the region where air is too thin to generate conventional lift. At that altitude, the curvature of the Earth itself becomes the flight path. The aircraft isn't flying over the planet so much as it's arcing around it, using near-orbital mechanics to cover thousands of miles in a fraction of the time any conventional aircraft could manage. Then it pitches down, bleeds velocity through re-entry, and descends on the target from almost directly above. That descent profile is where the 90-minute global reach number comes from. At hypersonic re-entry speeds, the distance between a launch point in the continental United States and a target on the other side of the world stops being measured in hours. It's measured in the time it takes to arc through low orbit and come back down. The physics behind this aren't theoretical. China's DFZF hypersonic glide vehicle uses a related principle. Boost a warhead to extreme altitude and velocity, then let it glide and maneuver during descent rather than following a ballistic arc. The phantom wing concept, as described by analysts tracking the program, takes that same logic and applies it to a reusable crewed or semi-crewed platform. Not a missile you fire once. A vehicle that returns to base, gets serviced, and flies again. Getting there requires solving one of the hardest problems in aerospace engineering: transitioning an aircraft from conventional turbine flight at low speed through the transonic and supersonic regimes all the way to Mach 6 and beyond demands an engine that can function across that entire range without stalling, melting or losing thrust at the worst possible moment. Scramjet engines only ignite efficiently above roughly Mach 4, which means the propulsion system has to bridge that gap. A combined cycle engine starts as a turbine, accelerates the aircraft to the speed where scramjet combustion becomes viable, then transitions cleanly to hypersonic mode. Lockheed's work on this problem goes back years, and the SR-72 program was built around making that transition reliable enough to be operational rather than experimental. Once the aircraft is above the atmosphere and descending, something interesting happens with stealth. At the speeds involved during re-entry, friction with the upper atmosphere generates a plasma sheath around the airframe. That layer of ionized gas absorbs radar energy rather than reflecting it back to a ground station. Conventional stealth coatings work by shaping the aircraft to scatter radar returns. The plasma effect works by swallowing the signal entirely. The aircraft is, in practical terms, invisible to ground-based radar during the exact phase of flight when it's most dangerous. The X-37B program adds another layer to this. The Air Force's unmanned spaceplane has been flying classified orbital missions for years, with individual sorties lasting many months. The official explanation covers technology demonstration in a general sense, but several defense analysts have noted that the vehicle's flight profile, its re-entry characteristics, and the thermal protection systems it uses are all directly applicable to a crewed or strike-capable successor. Whether the X-37B is a direct ancestor of something like the Phantom Wing, or simply a parallel program solving overlapping problems, the technology it's validating maps cleanly onto what an orbital strike aircraft would need to survive and function. That gets at why China and Iran aren't just watching this program with curiosity. They're watching it with urgency, because the defense gap it creates isn't something either country currently has any real answer to. China's most capable ground-based air defense network is built around systems like the HQ-9 and its naval equivalents. These are serious, modern platforms. They can engage targets at long range, they're mobile, and they're designed to handle multiple threats simultaneously. Against a conventional strike package, they'd cause real problems. The word conventional is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Every air defense system ever fielded is fundamentally a solution to a geometry problem. A radar acquisition system scans a defined volume of airspace, detects a target moving through it, hands off tracking data to a fire control system, and that system calculates an intercept trajectory and launches. The whole chain depends on one assumption, that the threat is coming from a direction and altitude the radar was designed to watch, with enough time in the engagement envelope to actually intercept it. An orbital strike aircraft breaks every variable in that chain at once. The descent profile we covered earlier means the threat arrives from almost directly overhead, not from the horizon where most radar apertures are optimized to look. The angle alone creates a detection problem that no software patch fixes, because it's baked into the physical orientation of the antenna arrays. To cover orbital re-entry angles, you'd need a fundamentally different sensor architecture pointed at the sky rather than the horizon, networked with fire control systems fast enough to generate an intercept solution in an extremely compressed window. That window is roughly 90 seconds or less from initial detection to impact, assuming the radar can acquire the target at all through the plasma sheath effect. 90 seconds is not enough time for any currently fielded intercept system to run a full engagement sequence against a maneuvering hypersonic vehicle descending from near orbital altitude. The missile has to be in the air before the geometry becomes workable, and you can't do that if you don't know the target is coming. Iran's situation is considerably more exposed. Their air defense inventory leans heavily on Russian origin systems, some of which date back decades. These aren't platforms designed to engage targets moving at hypersonic speeds under any geometry, let alone the near-vertical descent profile orbital strike produces. During the strikes attributed to Israel in recent years, Iranian systems struggled to consistently engage much slower, much lower-flying threats. The gap between what they operate and what an orbital strike aircraft represents isn't a gap you close with training or tactics. There's a psychological layer here too, and it matters as much as the technical one. Conventional deterrence works because both sides can see each other's capabilities developing in real time. Satellites track airfield construction, analysts count aircraft tail numbers, intelligence services monitor production rates, That visibility allows adversaries to calibrate their posture. They can assess the threat, build a response, and communicate that response as a deterrent of their own. An aircraft that can loiter in orbit for extended periods and descend without warning removes that visibility entirely. There's no ingress track to detect, no tanker support to monitor, no pre-flight activity to tip off intelligence collection. The first indication that a strike is happening could be the strike itself. Ballistic missiles follow a predictable arc from launch to impact, and that predictability is actually one of their weaknesses from a deterrent standpoint. Terminal defense systems have known intercept geometries to work with. A vehicle that maneuvers during descent on a profile that originates above the atmosphere doesn't give interceptors a predictable arc to solve for. That's not a marginal improvement in survivability. That's operating in a domain where the intercept math doesn't currently exist. So let's be straight about where the line sits between confirmed and alleged, because they're not the same thing, and collapsing them doesn't serve anyone. What's confirmed, the SR-72 program is real, Lockheed said so publicly. Skunk Works operates on black budget funding that's documented in congressional appropriations history. The X-37B is flying right now, somewhere above your head on a mission the Air Force hasn't fully explained. The physics of orbital re-entry and plasma stealth aren't classified. They're published aerospace science. Those things are facts. The Phantom Wing name isn't. The specific capability claims aren't. What circulates in defense analyst communities is a composite assembled from patent filings on advanced thermal protection and combined cycle propulsion, from signals intelligence reporting that's never been officially sourced, and from the kind of inference that happens when people who track black programs for a living notice line items in the Pentagon's budget that don't match anything on the acknowledged aircraft list. That's not nothing. It's also not a confirmed program. Here's why the Pentagon might not mind that ambiguity existing. An adversary that believes this aircraft is already operational has to plan for it. They have to spend money on detection architecture they don't currently have. They have to redesign missile defense doctrine around a threat profile their engineers are still trying to model. They have to absorb the psychological weight of knowing there may be a weapon in their opponent's inventory they have no answer for. All of that happens whether or not the platform has actually completed its first operational flight. Strategic ambiguity isn't a side effect of secrecy. Sometimes it's the product. The budget signal points in one direction. Unacknowledged special access programs have consumed a growing share of U.S. defense spending over the past decade, and the gap between total black budget allocation and the programs analysts can account for by name has widened. Something is absorbing that money. Multiple somethings, probably, and the historical pattern keeps repeating. The F-117 was a rumor, then a fact. The B-2 was a rumor, then a fact. The SR-72 itself was analyst speculation until Lockheed published it. Every one of those programs followed the same arc: denial, silence, then confirmation after the technology was mature enough that disclosure cost nothing strategically. Nobody outside the program knew the truth until Skunk Works decided they could afford to share it. That's exactly where the Phantom Wing sits right now. Either it's already flying and we're in the silence phase, or it's close enough that the rumors are doing useful work in the meantime. Both possibilities produce the same outcome for China and Iran. Whether the Phantom Wing is airborne tonight or still years from its first flight, the gap it represents is already reshaping how adversaries think and spend. China and Iran aren't building next-generation air defenses because they feel secure. On May 8, 2026, the U.S. government released classified UFO files that confirm what researchers have been saying for decades. Not grainy footage, not pilot testimonies that get dismissed at press briefings. Actual program documents from inside the U.S. intelligence apparatus confirming that non-human craft have been recovered. But here's what the headlines are missing. The real story isn't that UFOs are real. It's that the U.S. has had them for decades, handed them to defense contractors, and has been quietly learning how to fly them. The release covers documents spanning multiple agencies, including the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Office of Naval Intelligence, and several programs that had no public name until this month. What makes this different from every prior disclosure is the language. Previous releases talked about unidentified aerial phenomena in careful, detached terms. These documents use phrases like recovered non-human origin craft and material of non-terrestrial manufacture. That's not bureaucratic hedging. That's an admission. The scope of what dropped in May is wide, but it's the gaps that tell the deeper story. Whole sections are redacted. Specific program names appear once and then disappear behind black bars for the next 30 pages. You can see the shape of something much larger being deliberately kept out of frame. Several documents reference programs that connect directly to known black budget operations. The names won't be familiar to most people, but defense researchers have been tracking anomalous budget line items for years. Money that flows into programs with no public description and no congressional oversight record. What the May 8th files do is start filling in what some of that money was actually for. So why release any of this now? The answer is congressional pressure that's been building since 2023, combined with whistleblower protection legislation that made it legally safer for insiders to come forward. The UAP Disclosure Act forced the hand of agencies that would have sat on this indefinitely. Multiple former program officials had already testified under oath to the Senate Armed Services Committee that recovery programs existed. Once that's on the congressional record, full suppression becomes harder to maintain. Then there's AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which was set up in 2022 and spent 2 years publicly stating there was no evidence of recovered craft or reverse engineering programs. The May 8th documents directly contradict that position. Reports from inside AARO's own analysis chain reference material studies and propulsion research that don't match anything in the known aerospace inventory. The office was telling Congress one thing while its own classified reporting said something else entirely. One document that's getting a lot of attention references a program structure described as a tiered controlled access program, meaning it's classified above top secret in a way that legally exempts it from standard congressional oversight. That structure is how you hide something for 50 years without a single budget hearing exposing it. The program isn't in the black budget because it technically doesn't exist inside the normal classification architecture. It exists in a separate layer that most of the government can't even ask about. What's confirmed in the files, taken together, is this. Craft of non-human origin were recovered, materials from those craft were transferred to contractors for analysis, and at least some of that work involved propulsion systems that don't match any known physics framework. The documents don't explain how far that work progressed, but they confirm it happened and they confirm it's been happening for a long time. The files confirm recovery. But recovery is only the beginning of this story. What the US did with what it found, who did the work, and what they've actually built from it, that's what the next layer of documents starts to reveal. If you wanted to hide the most advanced aerospace program in human history, Lockheed's Skunk Works facility in Palmdale, California, is exactly where you'd put it. This is the same operation that built the U-2 spy plane in total secrecy during the 1950s, then followed it with the SR-71 Blackbird, which flew so fast and so high that nothing could touch it. Then came the F-117, the world's first operational stealth aircraft, which the Air Force publicly denied existed for years while it was already flying combat missions. Skunk Works doesn't just build classified aircraft, it builds things the rest of the world won't believe are possible until they're already obsolete. The May 8th files reference contractor involvement in material analysis going back decades. Lockheed is named in connection with propulsion research tied to recovered craft, and the language used isn't vague. One document describes a materials transfer to a cleared defense contractor facility for analysis of non-conventional propulsion elements. Skunk Works has the clearance infrastructure, the physical security, and the engineering depth to run exactly that kind of program without a single public trace. Raytheon's role is different, but just as telling. Where Lockheed is about airframes and propulsion, Raytheon specializes in the sensor and weapon systems that would need to interface with whatever gets built. Their classified divisions have been working on directed energy weapons and advanced electromagnetic systems for years, and several of those programs have budget lines that dwarf their known output. If you're reverse engineering a craft that manipulates electromagnetic fields for propulsion, you need Raytheon-level expertise to understand what you're actually measuring. Their involvement points to a program that's moved well past basic materials analysis into something that requires operational hardware. The structure that makes all of this legally possible is called a Controlled Access Program, or CAP. It sits above top secret clearance and operates outside the standard congressional budget review process. A program inside a CAP doesn't appear in defense appropriations hearings. It doesn't get reviewed by the Armed Services Committee. The people running it can legally tell senators it doesn't exist, because inside the classification framework, it technically doesn't. This is how you spend decades and billions of dollars on something with no public record. The money moves through layers of contractor sub-accounting that were specifically designed to be untraceable. Bob Lazar described this exact architecture in 1989. He said he worked at a facility near Area 51 called S4, where 9 recovered craft were stored and studied. He described a propulsion system built around a stable isotope of element 115, which he called moscovium, that generated a gravitational field used for propulsion. At the time, element 115 didn't officially exist on the periodic table. It was synthesized and confirmed in 2003. Lazar's technical descriptions were specific enough and accurate enough on points that couldn't have been guessed, that dismissing him as a fraud requires ignoring a lot of inconvenient detail. The May 8th files don't mention him by name, but the propulsion research they reference lines up with what he described 37 years ago. Where does the money come from? Defense analysts who track black budget allocations have flagged a category of aerospace spending that's grown by roughly 300% since the early 2000s, with no corresponding increase in known program output, no new aircraft, no announced propulsion contracts, no patents filed. That money went somewhere, and based on what the files released describe, the answer is becoming harder to argue with. Start with what Navy pilots actually recorded, because that's where the physics breaks down in a way you can't explain away. The Tic Tac incident from 2004 gave us something rare: military sensor data, trained observers, and a craft that performed maneuvers no known aircraft can execute. Commander David Fravor watched it drop from 80,000 feet to sea level in under a second, stop dead, then accelerate in a completely different direction with no transition, no arc, no deceleration curve. Just an instantaneous change of vector at speeds that would reduce a human pilot to a stain on the seat. The G-force involved in that kind of movement, by any conventional physics calculation, would be somewhere between 400 and 700 Gs. A human body starts losing consciousness around 9 Gs. Whatever was inside that craft, if anything was, it wasn't being subjected to the same forces the airframe was generating. That's the first thing that separates these craft from everything else. They don't appear to be affected by inertia. When your car accelerates, you feel it push you back into the seat because your body has mass and resists the change in motion. These craft move as if that relationship between mass and acceleration has been switched off. The engineering community's best working theory is electromagnetic field manipulation, where the craft generates a localized field that essentially warps the space it's moving through, so the craft and everything inside it moves together without experiencing the directional forces that would normally apply. You're not pushing through space, you're moving the space around you. Then there's the propulsion signature, or more accurately, the complete absence of one. Every aircraft ever built leaves traces: heat bloom from engines, exhaust gases, a pressure wave that generates a sonic boom above the speed of sound. These craft produce none of that. Radar tracks them at speeds well above Mach 1 with no sonic signature. Infrared sensors find no heat output. There's no jet wash, no plasma trail, nothing that conventional propulsion would leave behind. Whatever is moving them isn't burning anything and isn't pushing against the air. The altitude performance compounds this, from a standing hover at low altitude to above 80,000 feet in a matter of seconds, with no acceleration phase, no engine spool-up, no detectable thrust vector. That's not improved propulsion, that's a different category of physics entirely. Stealth properties add another layer. These craft don't just absorb radar the way an F-22 does with its angled surfaces and radar-absorbing materials. They disappear from multiple sensor types simultaneously. Radar, infrared, optical tracking, all go blank at the same moment. That kind of cross-spectrum disappearance suggests the craft can manipulate its own electromagnetic signature across every detection wavelength at once, not just deflect one type of sensor. Now factor in the TR-3B, a triangular craft reported independently by dozens of witnesses across multiple countries over the past 30 years, always described the same way: silent, slow-moving at low altitude, capable of accelerating away at speeds that leave no trace on radar. The consistency of those descriptions across unconnected sources is hard to write off. If the reverse engineering programs described in the May 8th files produced a flying prototype, a triangular platform would be a logical airframe choice for a craft using field-based propulsion rather than conventional thrust. Even replicating 20% of what these craft can do would make the result invisible to every air defense system on the planet. No radar lock, no heat-seeking missile track, no intercept solution. If the US has crossed that threshold, the gap between American air power and every other nation isn't measured in generations. It's measured in physics. China's DFZF hypersonic glide vehicle tops out around Mach 10. Russia's Avangard system reaches Mach 27 under ideal conditions. Both represent years of development and genuine engineering achievement. They're also still moving through the atmosphere the same way a rock moves when you throw it, subject to drag, heat, gravity, and tracking solutions that improve every year. Western air defense systems have already started adapting to hypersonic threats. The physics is understood. The countermeasures are being built. A craft that produces no radar return, no heat signature, and no inertial profile isn't a faster version of the same problem. It's a problem that existing defense architecture has no answer for, because every detection and intercept system ever built assumes the target is operating inside Newtonian physics. You can't compute an intercept solution for something that changes direction instantaneously. You can't guide a missile to a heat source that doesn't exist. You can't jam a craft that's already invisible to every wavelength you're transmitting. That's what makes the strategic gap here different from any prior technology advantage. When the US fielded the F-117, it took years before adversaries developed radar systems capable of tracking low observable aircraft. Eventually they did. The physics was still the same, just harder to work with. What the May 8th files point toward is a capability that doesn't give adversaries a longer timeline to adapt. It gives them no pathway at all, because the underlying physics isn't an evolution of what they already understand. The surveillance applications alone would reshape geopolitics entirely. A platform that can reach any point on Earth undetected, loiter without any thermal or electromagnetic trace, and exit before any response is mounted gives the US an intelligence collection capability with no precedent. Every facility, every command structure, every weapons program a foreign government believes is hidden becomes visible, and they'd never know it happened. That's why this stayed buried for so long. Releasing it doesn't just trigger an arms race. It collapses the entire framework of mutual deterrence that international security has been built on since the 1950s. Every treaty negotiated under the assumption that both sides had roughly comparable detection and strike capabilities becomes meaningless. Every military alliance recalculates its value. The geopolitical order restructures overnight and not in ways anyone can fully predict. Lockheed and Raytheon aren't going to confirm any of this. The program managers who ran these operations signed agreements that don't expire and carry criminal consequences. But the May 8th documents are doing something those individuals can't stop. They're assembling the outline of a program that was never supposed to have an outline. Each redacted page still shows you where the edges are. And the edges are a lot larger than anyone outside this program was supposed to know. The US didn't just recover something. It spent decades turning that recovery into operational hardware, and the rest of the world is only now finding out that race was run without them. What dropped isn't the end of the story. It's the first time the story got official edges. The US has been flying ahead of the known world for decades, and the files are finally saying what the contractors never will. The United States' fifth-generation fighters have dominated the skies with their advanced capabilities. They have been unrivaled and undefeatable, taking charge as the world's most sophisticated fighters. However, a more cutting-edge fighter jet from Russia has challenged this claim, proving that the US fifth generation is now unbeatable after all. This Russian fighter possesses advanced capabilities and lethal features that have shocked the United States Air Force. Is this Russian fighter formidable enough to take on one of the most advanced aircraft in the world? What are the capabilities of this fighter? Join us as we explore the designs and capabilities of the only fighter jet that can beat the F-35. On June 8th, Russia took a significant blow when Ukrainian forces hit a Su-57 fighter jet at Akbank Air Base, about 366 miles from the front line. This was the first time a fifth-generation fighter jet was destroyed in combat, which is especially surprising considering that the Su-57's main competitor, the F-35 Lightning II, has over 1,000 units built. The Su-57, known by NATO as the Felon, is a single-seat, twin-engine fighter designed for multiple roles. It's one of only 4 fifth-generation fighters in the world, alongside China's J-20 and the American F-22 and F-35, the latter being the Su-57's closest rival. Let's explore the designs and capabilities of the Su-57. The Su-57 Felon is built for air superiority, excelling in aerial combat as well as ground and maritime strikes. It's equipped to be one of the most advanced fighters in the world, but it faces tough competition from the F-35 Lightning II. It is a fifth-generation fighter jet, known for being Russia's first stealth aircraft in active service. It's designed to be versatile, capable of handling various missions, and focuses on stealth and high maneuverability in all directions. The plane also features large internal bays for carrying weapons and advanced sensors, including a radar system that allows for a high degree of automation. Sukhoi, the company behind the Su-57, looked at the F-22 Raptor as a model for creating a highly maneuverable stealth fighter. However, they aimed to fix some issues they saw in the F-22, such as its limited ability to use thrust vectoring to change direction and its small space for carrying weapons. They also felt the F-22 wasn't suitable for the multi-role missions needed by Russia, as it focused too much on air-to-air combat with fewer weapons. The aircraft has a wide, blended body with 2 engines placed far apart and includes movable horizontal and vertical stabilizers, with the vertical ones tilted for better stealth. The wings are shaped like a trapezoid and include flaps and other control surfaces to help with maneuverability. The plane also uses thrust vectoring to improve its agility and has special extensions on the wings to improve control at high angles and recover from stalls quickly if the thrust vectoring system fails. For braking in the air, the plane's ailerons move up while other control surfaces move down, and the vertical stabilizers turn inward to create more drag. The Su-57 is made from a combination of materials, with about 40% being aluminum and 18% titanium, but it also uses a lot of composite materials, making up about 75% of its outer surface and 22 to 26% of its structural weight. The Su-57 was designed to handle multiple roles. Unlike the F-35, it has a large internal space to carry various air-to-surface weapons. These weapons are stored in 2 main bays located between the engines, along with smaller side bays near the wings. Keeping the weapons inside the aircraft reduces drag, which improves performance and helps maintain its stealth features. It is highly maneuverable and stable in flight thanks to its advanced flight control system and thrust vectoring nozzles that can direct the engine's thrust. This allows the jet to perform complex maneuvers like the Pugachev's Cobra and the Bell maneuver, as well as flat rotations without losing much altitude. The aircraft's design and powerful engines enable it to reach speeds of Mach 2 and fly at supersonic speeds without using afterburners at Mach 1.3. This gives it a significant advantage in range and speed over older aircraft models. The Su-57 can fly over 1,500 kilometers at supersonic speeds, which is more than twice the range of the Su-27. It also has an extendable refueling probe to further increase its range. While the F-35 is a single-engine aircraft, the Su-57 packs 2 powerful fire spitters in its rear. On the F-35 is the Pratt & Whitney F-135 low-bypass augmented turbofan that provides 43,000-pound force of thrust with afterburner, thrusting the jet to a top speed of Mach 1.6 to 20 slower than the Mach 2 top speed of the Super Cruise-capable Su-57 with afterburner engaged. Thanks to a pair of NPO Lilka Southern Izdeli 117 engines that produce a combined thrust of over 63,000-pound force. But what the F-35 lacks in thrust, it seems to make up for in engine stealth. The engine on the F-35 has a low observable afterburner that incorporates fuel injectors into thick curved vanes. These vanes are covered by ceramic radar-absorbent materials and mask the turbine. Its low observable axis-symmetric nozzle consists of 15 partially overlapping flaps that create a sawtooth pattern at the trailing edge, which reduces radar signature and creates shed vortices that reduce the infrared signature of the exhaust plume. The F-135 PW600 engine for the F-35B, a variant of the F-35 designed for the U.S. Marines, supports short takeoff and vertical landing by incorporating a shaft-driven lift fan. This SDLF was designed by Lockheed Martin and developed by Rolls-Royce as a key technology for the F-35, displaying the most impressive use case and performance. So much so that the system was awarded the prestigious Collier Trophy in 2001. The Su-57 is the first Russian military aircraft designed with a focus on stealth. To reduce its radar visibility, it uses several techniques similar to other stealth fighters like the F-22. The edges of the wings, control surfaces, and panels are carefully aligned and angled to minimize radar reflections. Weapons are stored inside the aircraft, and antennas are recessed to keep the stealthy shape intact. The aircraft is also coated with radar-absorbent material, or RAIM, to absorb radar signals and reduce the chances of detection. The entire fifth-generation class of aircraft is heavily dependent on stealth capabilities, so neither the F-35 nor the Su-57 is found lacking here. The American fighter was designed from the ground up with stealth in mind. Its manufacturer, Lockheed Martin, aligned its edges, serrated its skin panels, and masked the engine with easy-to-maintain fiber matte skin for low observability. They also reduced infrared and visual signatures, enabled the reflection of radar waves, and used strict controls of radio frequency emitters. The result is a radar cross-section lower than that of a metal golf ball. However, like other stealth aircraft, the Su-57's low observability is most effective against high-frequency radars, which are typically used by other aircraft. Low-frequency radars, such as those used for weather and early warning, are more likely to detect the Su-57 because of its size. But these radars are larger, more prone to interference, and less precise. To preserve their stealth profiles, both fighters by default carry their weapons internally, although they both have external hardpoints to carry weapons when stealth isn't the topmost priority. The F-35 has 4 internal hardpoints and 6 external hardpoints that combine to hold up to 18,000 pounds of weapons. These weapons are a combination of the most advanced American air-to-air missiles, air-to-surface missiles, and anti-ship missiles. It also wields conventional bombs such as the GBU-53/B Stormbreaker and nuclear bombs such as the B-61 Mod 12 nuclear bomb. For more rapid fire, the F-35 packs a 180-round, 25mm GAU-22/A4 barrel rotary cannon that fires 3,300 rounds per minute, which is far superior to the 1,500 rounds per minute of the 30mm Gryazev-Shipunov JISH-31 autocannon on the Su-57. There's a reason for this. The F-35, being a multi-role fighter, would be tasked with providing close air support to troops on the ground in a bid to replace the renowned A-10 Warthog. The Russian fighter has 6 internal hardpoints and 6 external hardpoints that combine to carry an estimated 16,500 pounds of weapons, slightly less than the weapons payload of the F-35. On its hardpoints is a combination of air-to-air missiles, air-to-surface missiles, anti-ship missiles, anti-radiation missiles, and conventional bombs. It's unclear if the Su-57 would be able to wield nuclear weapons like the F-35 can. The Su-57 takes things further with thrust vector control. The engine nozzles can rotate to direct thrust in different directions, allowing the jet to execute complex maneuvers in pitch, yaw, and roll. This level of control, first seen in earlier Sukhoi models like the Su-30 MKI and Su-35S, makes the Su-57 incredibly agile, capable of feats that seem to defy the laws of physics. The engines also include variable intake ramps for efficiency at supersonic speeds, and retractable screens to protect against debris when taking off from rough runways. However, the AL-41F1 engines haven't been without controversy. In 2011, a Su-57 had to abort takeoff due to a compressor stall during the Moscow Air Show, raising concerns about reliability. Looking to the future, the Su-57M is set to receive an even more advanced engine, the AL-51F1, by the mid-2020s. This new engine, designated as ISDELI 30 during development, will provide even more thrust, which is up to 37,500 pounds in afterburner, while also being more reliable and stealthier, thanks to innovations like glass fiber plastic components and a new nozzle design with serrated flaps. As if that weren't enough, by 2023, reports surfaced that UEC Saturn is working on a sixth-generation engine design for the Su-57, pushing the boundaries of what this fighter jet can achieve. By December 2023, all new Su-57s delivered to the Russian Air Force will be equipped with this advanced Stage 2 engine, setting a new standard for power and performance in military aviation. The Su-57 is equipped with two main internal weapon bays, each about 14.4 feet long and 3 feet wide, and two smaller side weapon bays near the wing roots. The main bays are fitted with launchers that can handle different types of missiles. The UVKU-50L launcher for missiles up to 660 pounds, and the UVKU-50U for those up to 1,500 pounds. The side bays use VPU-50 launch rails. For air combat, the Su-57 can carry 4 long-range missiles in the main bays and 2 short-range missiles in the side bays. The primary medium-range missile is the R-77M, an advanced version of the R-77 with improved radar guidance and a dual-pulse motor. For close-range combat, it uses the R-74M2, a heat-seeking missile designed to fit inside the aircraft. There's also a new short-range missile, the KAMD, in development to eventually replace the R-74M2. For longer-range missions, the Su-57 can carry the ISDELI 810 missile, an upgraded version of the R-37M. For striking ground and sea targets, the Su-57 can carry precision-guided bombs like the KB-250 and KB-500, as well as a variety of missiles including the KH-38 for air-to-ground attacks, the KH-35U anti-ship missile, the KH-58 USHK anti-radiation missile, and the KH-69 cruise missile. When stealth is not a priority, the aircraft can also carry weapons on 6 external hardpoints. Additionally, a new hypersonic missile similar to the KH-47M2 Kinzhal is being developed for internal carriage within the Su-57. The Su-57 also features a 30mm autocannon mounted inside the aircraft near the right wing root. This cannon has an effective range of about 870 yards against aerial targets and 2,000 yards against ground targets. One main feature of the aircraft is a modern glass cockpit without any old-style analog gauges. Instead, it displays information on 2 large 15-inch multifunctional LCD screens, similar to the setup in the Su-35S. Additionally, there is a smaller multifunctional display and a digital control panel. The cockpit includes a wide-angle head-up display that gives the pilot key information directly in their line of sight. The primary controls are a joystick and a pair of throttles, with major functions managed through a hands-on throttle and stick system. The aircraft's canopy is made of 2 parts, with the rear section sliding forward to lock into place. This canopy is coated with a special material to reduce the plane's radar visibility. For pilot safety and comfort, the Su-57 uses the NPP Zvezda Kkuya with 36D5 ejection seat and the Soji 50 life support system, which includes anti-G protection and an oxygen generation system. The pilot wears a Zeiss AH-10B helmet equipped with a digital display that tracks eye movements, helping to target enemies even at high angles. The oxygen system provides an unlimited supply during flight. The life support system allows the pilot to perform intense 9G maneuvers for up to 30 seconds. The ejection seat, along with the PPK-7 flight suit, ensures safe ejection at altitudes ranging from ground level to 66,000 feet and speeds up to 810 miles per hour. The system also includes a survival kit to help the pilot after ejection. Both the F-35 Lightning II and the Su-57 are fitted with the most advanced avionics and armament their respective countries have to offer. For the F-35, the AN/APG-81, active electronically scanned array radar, AON/ASQ-239, Barracuda electronic warfare system, AN/AAQ-37 distributed aperture system, AN/AAQ40 electro-optical targeting system, and AN/ANQ242 communications, navigation, and identification suite, all combine to provide rapid beam agility, multiple operational modes, all-aspect missile launch and target tracking, 10 radio frequency antennas, all-aspect radar warning receiver, self-defense against missiles, the detection and jamming of hostile radars, laser targeting, forward-looking infrared capabilities, long-range IRRS functions, and an impossible level of sensor fusion to give the pilot and friendlies an omnipresent tactical picture of the battle space without compromising stealth. All of these are made possible by software running on a shocking 86 million lines of code, which is more than double the 4 million lines of the Su-57's code. But this isn't a coding competition, and in terms of avionics, the Su-57 has its own statement to make. Its central integrated management system fuses all the data from the SH-121 radar and electronic warfare radio electronic system, the 101KS electro-optical system, multiple, the NO-36 radar DAR-101, X-band, active electronically scanned array radar, and two, the NO-36 radar L-band transceivers for friend or foe identification and electronic warfare. This allows for the total integration of avionics systems, maximization of pilots' situational awareness, and reduced workload. Still, the priority for the Su-57 is air superiority, and thus it has fewer avionics systems than the multi-role F-35. Unlike the F-35, the Russian fighter has the PAK-FA program. One of the main technical goals of the PAK-FA program is to fully integrate the Su-57's avionics systems, or sensor fusion, to improve the pilot's awareness of the surroundings and reduce their workload. The integration of these systems is managed by an information management system developed by GRPZ from Ryazan. The key systems include the Sh-121 multifunctional integrated radio electronic system and the 101KS Atoll electro-optical system. Unlike earlier Sukhoi aircraft, Sukhoi itself handled the integration of the IUS, rather than relying on RPKB of Armenskia. The Integrated Avionics Suite, known as IMABK, uses fiber optic channels and runs on over 4 million lines of code. The Sh-121 system includes the NO-36 Bielka radar system and the L-402 Himalayas electronic countermeasure system. The NO-36 radar, developed by Tikhomarov NIIP Institute, features a main nose-mounted X-band radar with 1,114 modules and two side-looking X-band radars with 404 modules each, providing wider coverage. The radar antennas are tilted back for stealth purposes. The side radars allow the Su-57 to guide its own missiles while performing evasive maneuvers. The system also has L-band transceivers on the wing edges, which help with identifying friend or foe in electronic warfare. The L-402 Himalayas ECM suite works with both its own arrays and the NO-36 radar system, with one array located between the engines. Communication and data exchange between aircraft and command centers are managed by the S-111 system. The 101KS Atoll electro-optical system includes various sensors like the 101KSV infrared search and track, 101KSO directional infrared countermeasures, and others for navigation and targeting. The URST is mounted near the cockpit and can track multiple targets, while the DORS-EM system, a first for a fighter aircraft, has turrets mounted on the aircraft to protect against incoming missiles. The Su-57 can also deploy countermeasures like flares and radar decoys from dispensers in the tailboom. For navigation, the Su-57 uses the BINS SP2M inertial navigation system, which can work with GLONASS and is controlled by the IVS-50 computing system. KRET, the developer, announced in 2016 that it is working on a video processing system called Okhotnik to improve target detection and tracking. The aircraft also has a monitoring system that can predict the lifespan of its composite parts, making maintenance more efficient. Additionally, the Su-57 could be used to test advanced AI and unmanned teaming technologies for future fighter programs, and it has even demonstrated autonomous flight without pilot input. It is important to note that over 1,000 F-35s have been built since 2006. While Russia struggles to build a Su-57 in any significant numbers, only 32 units of the fighter have been built since 2009, many of which can't currently take to the skies to protect their nation. And the ones that can are apparently being picked off and destroyed in the Ukraine war. The war has also reportedly slowed down the already slow production of the Russian fighter. So in a battle between the F-35 and Su-57, it'll be a case of entire colonies of hundreds of F-35s up against 24 Su-57s. It would be an unfair fight, and regardless of their capabilities, the winner can be seen before a single shot is fired. Can the United States F-35 withstand the threat of Chinese hypersonic weapons? Recent advancements in China's hypersonic technology have raised global concerns, sparking questions about whether the United States is losing its technological edge. Does the U.S. have the capability to counter these hypersonic threats, or is it at risk of falling behind in this critical area of defense? Join us as we delve into the groundbreaking comparison of two ultimate weapons, the F-35 versus Chinese hypersonic threats. China is making fast progress in hypersonic missile technology, putting it at the forefront globally and raising concerns in the United States. One major example of their advancements is the DF-17 missile, which is designed for speed and precision. It is a medium-range ballistic missile that uses solid fuel and is road mobile, meaning it can be transported and launched from various locations. They have also made breakthroughs in thermal protection and cooling systems, which are crucial for managing the intense heat these missiles generate during flight. These developments give China a clear technological advantage, showing their growing strength in modern military innovation. It's certain that they are not stopping anytime soon, because they recently achieved another major breakthrough in hypersonic missile technology, particularly with its thermal protection system. Chinese scientists have made significant improvements by adding steel nose cones to their new missiles. This advancement is crucial because it enhances the missile's ability to survive the extreme conditions it faces during flight. In August, China also announced the development of an innovative cooling device designed to manage the intense heat generated during hypersonic flight. Hypersonic missiles travel at incredibly high speeds, which results in a huge buildup of heat. Without proper cooling, this heat could damage the missile's guidance system, affecting its accuracy and performance. With the new cooling technology, the missile is better equipped to withstand these extreme temperatures, making it less likely to malfunction. This improvement allows the missile to fly more effectively and remain undetected, increasing its chances of successfully reaching and eliminating its target. These technological advances are a significant step forward for China's hypersonic missile program, giving it a performance edge in the field of modern warfare. As the race for advanced weaponry intensifies, these innovations could change the future of missile technology and warfare. One member of Congress is raising concerns. Representative Doug Lamborn, who is part of the House Armed Services Committee, held a hearing for his subcommittee this spring. The mood was serious. One expert on the panel said the United States is clearly falling behind China. Jeffrey McCormick, an intelligence analyst with the Defense Intelligence Agency, stated that China now has the world's leading hypersonic arsenal. The United States still has reason for optimism. Surprisingly, one of the best American hypersonic missiles is being developed by the U.S. Army. Known as the Long-Range Hypersonic Weapon, or by its nickname, the Dark Eagle, this missile has impressive capabilities. It can travel at speeds exceeding 3,008 human miles per hour and has a range of 1,722. The Dark Eagle uses a road-mobile launcher, a feature also preferred by China for its missiles, making it a highly versatile weapon. According to the Army, the missile can fly to the top of the Earth's atmosphere and stay just out of reach of air and missile defense systems until it's ready to strike. By the time it's within range, it's already too late to react. Despite China's advancements, all is not lost for the U.S. The race to develop hypersonic missiles is critical, as China has made remarkable progress in this area. Their scientists have been steadily advancing hypersonic technology and already have fast, maneuverable missiles deployed. China's military continues to look for ways to improve these weapons, and its rapid progress is something the U.S. must be prepared to match. However, the United States is not far behind, and with the right focus and commitment, it can catch up to China. The issue lies in the way the U.S. military approaches hypersonic development. While China has been able to make steady, incremental advances in their missile technology, the United States has focused on separate programs across various branches of the military. This lack of coordination could slow progress. In contrast, China's approach is more streamlined, allowing them to make faster improvements and field more advanced systems. There's still a chance for the U.S. to regain its lead, but it will require strong, focused efforts. We have yet to experience a Sputnik moment where China might test a hypersonic missile in a high-profile launch that demonstrates its serious intentions to use these weapons for strategic purposes. A launch over Guam, for example, could be a powerful signal to the world of China's capabilities and intentions. Until such a moment happens, policymakers like Representative Doug Lamborn, who is raising concerns about the state of U.S. military technology, are crucial. They are pushing for the U.S. to stay focused on developing advanced hypersonic systems to counter China's growing missile capabilities. While there have been some obstacles and challenges in the development of American hypersonic weapons, the U.S. defense industry is known for its strength. With continued investment, collaboration, and focus, it's likely that the United States will catch up to China in this critical area of military technology. The arms race is far from over, and with the right strategy, the U.S. could still emerge as the leader in hypersonic missile technology. This leads us to one important question. Can the F-35 withstand the lethality of the Chinese hypersonic threat? Let's analyze the strength of this American airfighter. The F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is one of the most recognizable fighter jets in the world. Since it began service, this American-made fifth-generation aircraft has flown over 777,000 hours. Currently, 20 nations use the F-35, making it a vital tool for the U.S. and its allies. For years, the U.S. held air superiority with the introduction of the F-22 Raptor. However, both China and Russia now have their own fifth-generation jets and are working on sixth-generation designs. For now, the F-22 and F-35 remain America's top fighters. The F-35 mission systems are like the brain and eyes of the jet, making it one of the smartest aircraft ever built. Packed with advanced sensors and software, these systems give pilots a complete picture of their surroundings, making the jet a powerful tool in modern warfare. Key components include the APG-81 radar, which can track multiple targets over 150 kilometers away, and the Barracuda electronic warfare system, which can detect, jam, and protect against enemy radars. The jet also features a cutting-edge distributed aperture system with 6 infrared cameras that provide a full to 60-degree view, even at night. All this information is fused into a single clear display for the pilot, giving them unmatched situational awareness. Future upgrades include improved sensors, a more powerful radar, and even the ability to control drones during missions. With these advancements, the F-35 isn't just a fighter jet. It's a flying command center built for the future of air combat. Stealth is one of the F-35's most impressive features, making it hard for enemies to detect. Its unique design includes smooth, curved surfaces, precisely aligned edges, and radar-absorbing materials to minimize radar detection. Even the engine is cleverly hidden from view. The jet's advanced air intake system, called the diverterless supersonic inlet, further reduces its radar signature by eliminating gaps that could reflect signals. Remarkably, the F-35 radio cross-section is so small that it's been compared to the size of a metal golf ball from certain angles, even outperforming the stealthy F-22 in some scenarios. Its outer skin, made from durable, radar-absorbent material, is designed to last longer and require less maintenance than older stealth aircraft like the F-22. The F-35 also reduces its infrared and visual signatures, making it harder to spot by heat or sight. It carefully manages its radio signals to avoid detection. While low-frequency radars can sometimes detect stealth aircraft, they are bulky, imprecise, and easy to locate, giving the F-35 a significant advantage. For training purposes, it can even use special reflectors to temporarily increase its radar signature. Its cockpit is like something out of a sci-fi movie, designed to give pilots maximum awareness and control. At its heart is a massive 20 by 8-inch touchscreen display, which shows everything from flight data to weapon systems and alerts. Pilots can customize the layout to fit their needs, making it incredibly user-friendly. Beneath this display is a smaller backup screen for emergencies, while advanced voice recognition technology allows hands-free commands. Unlike older jets with head-up displays on the dashboard, the F-35 uses a state-of-the-art helmet-mounted display system. This helmet projects flight and combat information directly onto the pilot's visor, so they can see critical data no matter where they're looking. It even integrates infrared and night vision, allowing pilots to see through the plane for incredible situational awareness. The helmet is so advanced that pilots can lock onto targets and fire missiles without pointing the aircraft directly at them. Each helmet costs a whopping $400,000, but its capabilities are game-changing. While the HMDS had some growing pains, like issues with vibration and night vision early on, it's now more reliable than ever. The latest version boasts improved cameras, sharper displays, and advanced alignment features. The F-35 cockpit and helmet work together to give pilots an unmatched edge in the skies, blending cutting-edge technology with pilot-friendly design. Without going on and on about the capabilities of the F-35, to answer the question, it is unlikely for this American aircraft to be able to directly withstand a hit from a modern Chinese hypersonic missile due to their extreme speed, maneuverability, and difficulty in detection, making them very hard to intercept with current technology. What is the United States Air Force doing concerning the threat that these Chinese hypersonic air force pose? The United States Department of Defense is ramping up spending on hypersonic weapons after years of warnings that China is pulling ahead in this technology. However, this new arms race comes with risks, especially as relations between the US and China continue to worsen. And there's limited information about China's advancements in this field. Hypersonic weapons, which travel faster than Mach 5, aren't a new concept. The US has been testing them since the 1950s. But investment in these systems slowed over the years. Meanwhile, China and Russia have made significant progress in their hypersonic programs. Russia recently demonstrated its capability by using 6 hypersonic Kinzhal missiles in Ukraine, the largest single deployment of these weapons during the war. Other nations, including Australia, South and North Korea, Japan, India, and Germany, are also developing hypersonic weapons. The US is now increasing funding and efforts to catch up, but the timing is tense, with US-China relations at their lowest point in decades. This competition could shape the future of global military power. The US Department of Defense reportedly plans to allocate $15 billion for hypersonic weapons development for the Army and Air Force between 2023 and 2027, as highlighted in a Congressional Budget Office report. This figure excludes the Navy's program, which recently awarded a $1.1 billion contract to Lockheed Martin for integrating hypersonic systems into Zumwalt-class destroyers. Experts have indicated that the US may be lagging behind China in this field. Reports noted that China's 2021 test of a nuclear-capable hypersonic weapon surprised many in the defense sector, showcasing advanced capabilities that exceeded expectations. It has been suggested that America's previous technological dominance, once considered untouchable, is now being challenged by China's progress. Observers have pointed out that this shift has spurred the US to accelerate its efforts in several areas. Concerns have also been raised about the absence of treaties governing hypersonic weapons, a situation some believe could lead to global instability, as seen during the Cuban Missile Crisis. However, analysts have noted that the major powers in this domain appear unwilling to pursue such agreements at present. Despite challenges, US defense officials, lawmakers, and weapons manufacturers continue to advocate for hypersonic technology, with the government now committing significant funding to advance the project. Hypersonic weapons are undeniably expensive, but they offer unique advantages that justify the investment. The US military began exploring hypersonic systems as far back as the 1960s, initially focusing on hypersonic flight for transporting people rather than weapons. By the 1980s, however, the focus shifted. During this period, the Air Force tested the maneuvering reentry vehicles, demonstrating that missiles traveling at speeds of Mach 5 or faster could be guided precisely to their targets as they re-entered Earth's atmosphere. The early 2000s marked a turning point when the US began serious efforts to develop hypersonic weapons under its Conventional Prompt Global Strike program. Today, 2 primary types of hypersonic weapons are being developed: glide vehicles and air-breathing missiles. Glide vehicles are launched on rockets and glide through the atmosphere at high speeds, while air-breathing missiles use engines to sustain their hypersonic speeds. Although US hypersonic systems are designed to carry conventional payloads, other nations such as China are pursuing nuclear-capable hypersonic weapons. This was evident during China's groundbreaking 2021 tests, which demonstrated the ability to combine nuclear warheads with hypersonic speeds, raising concerns about the global arms race. As the US pushes forward, these advanced systems promise unparalleled speed, precision, and flexibility in modern warfare, making them a critical focus for defense strategies. China has long sought ways to counter U.S. missile defense systems, viewing them as a threat to its nuclear deterrence, according to Lyle Morris, a senior fellow at the Asia Society Policy Institute. Since the early 2000s, China has significantly boosted its hypersonic weapons program, especially after the U.S. withdrew from the anti-ballistic missile treaty with the Soviet Union. With no restrictions on developing anti-ballistic systems, China felt compelled to develop a different kind of deterrent. One key focus of China's efforts has been glide-type hypersonic weapons. These systems start their journey atop a ballistic missile, explains Timothy Heath, a defense researcher at the RAND Corporation. Once the missile reaches a certain altitude, the hypersonic glider detaches and travels at incredible speeds within the atmosphere. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that follow a fixed trajectory, the glider can maneuver in flight, using the momentum from its launch to strike its target with precision. China claims its hypersonic weapons are ready for deployment, which Heath notes is a step or two ahead of the U.S., whose hypersonic program is still in the testing phase. This progress isn't surprising given China's advanced ballistic missile program and the U.S.'s relative underinvestment in similar technologies over the years. The real game changer with hypersonic weapons isn't just their speed, but their ability to maneuver and evade missile defense systems like the Patriot. These systems, widely used in the U.S. and 17 other countries, struggle to track and intercept hypersonic weapons due to their unpredictable flight paths and the ability to skim the edge of the Earth's atmosphere before re-entering. According to defense experts, hypersonic weapons could potentially outmatch even the most advanced air and missile defense systems in the near future, making them a significant development in modern military technology. With China's successful hypersonic missile tests and rising tensions between Beijing and Washington, it's understandable to worry about the rapid pace of weapons development and heated rhetoric. However, there are significant obstacles to the widespread use of hypersonic weapons in combat. The high cost, around $15 million to $18 million per missile, combined with the practical realities of warfare, where basic weapons like artillery are often more effective, makes their use in battle questionable. Experts like Lyle Morris and Timothy Heath are skeptical about hypersonics' actual usefulness on the battlefield. A report from the Congressional Research Service points out that critics believe these weapons don't have clear mission roles, don't significantly improve U.S. military capabilities, and aren't necessary for deterrence. In addition, there's concern that China might share its hypersonic technology with other U.S. adversaries, such as North Korea, Iran, and Russia, all of which are developing their own hypersonic programs. As China and Russia strengthen their defense and technological ties, sharing knowledge on hypersonics wouldn't be surprising, says Elsa Kania, an expert on national security. One of the main concerns about China's hypersonic program is that the U.S. might be caught off guard. The fear of appearing less dominant in defense was especially strong after China's successful missile tests in 2021. General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, called these tests China's Sputnik moment, drawing a comparison to the Soviet Union's 1957 launch of the first artificial satellite, which shocked the U.S. Despite the concerns, Heath argues that hypersonic weapons would not be the deciding factor in a conflict between the U.S. and China or any other nation with hypersonic capabilities. The U.S. has a significant edge in other military technologies like stealth aircraft, long-range bombers, aircraft carriers, and submarines, conventional forces that allow the U.S. to project power and dominate adversaries without relying on long-range missiles. As the U.S. continues to invest in hypersonics and other nations develop their own capabilities, it's crucial to establish some sort of agreement on how these weapons should be used in combat. Unfortunately, Morris notes, this may not happen until a major escalation forces both sides to confront the issue. With the current lack of communication between China and the U.S. military, the risk of misunderstandings or miscalculations is high. Furthermore, most significant weapons agreements have historically been between the U.S. and Russia. With Russia pulling out of the New START Treaty, the last major nuclear arms control agreement, the hope for any future defense technology agreement seems distant at best. For a long time, Japan has maintained a strictly defensive position in its military owing to its demilitarization by the United States after the Second World War. However, watching the Kremlin and China forcing conquests of militarily vulnerable nations, Tokyo joined forces with the United Kingdom and Italy in founding the Global Combat Air Program toward the creation of next-generation fighter jets. Could Japan be leaning towards a more proactive military approach? How has Russia taken this news? Join us as we discuss how Japan's new fighter jet rattles Russia. Over the years, Japan has maintained peace in its military structures, but it wasn't always so. Before the mid-1940s, they were a part of the massive military force under Emperor Hirohito that worked in tandem with Hitler's Nazi Germany forces and the Italian forces during the Second World War. Their improved technology and daring spirit to go after the United States on their own turf in Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, became a calling card for their military strength. However, following the United States' decision to join the war and the atomic bombs released in parts of Japan, especially Hiroshima and Nagasaki, on August 6 and 9, 1945, the Japanese Empire surrendered their arms. They did not, at the time, have an answer for an atomic bomb. But not only did Japan have to surrender their arms, it also had to surrender some part of their rights as a sovereign state to the United States. Following their tragic loss to the United States during the war in 1945, America occupied Japan for 7 years, enforcing a new constitution, where Article 9 conveniently stops them from owning a military force. While some of the top Japanese lobbyists tried to fight against it, they failed, as the country had already set a precedent of war when they hit Pearl Harbor, and now the United States, which drafted the post-war constitution, was strong-arming them into total submission and dominance. Having no choice but to sign, Tokyo has always kept its nose clean, avoiding war, and quite reluctantly becoming a home to 14 of the biggest military bases that belong to the United States, including the Yokota Air Base in Tokyo, the headquarters of U.S. Forces Japan, the Kadena Air Base, the Yokosuka Naval Base, the Misawa Air Base, and other strategically located military bases for the sake of protecting Japan should a war ever be on the horizon. Although Tokyo is unable to create its own military, it has been afforded the luxury of having a self-defense corps called the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, or JFDF. While Japan has politically shied away from referring to these self-defense forces as military, they are trained in the same way that a military is trained. Although they are not allowed to wage war on another country, as the United States forces control that part, the JFDF is a highly trained elite force, which is very capable of defending their homeland on their own turf if push ever came to shove. Owing to their demilitarization, Tokyo had refrained from manufacturing offensive weapons or military technologies in order to keep honoring their agreement with the United States. While they continued to uphold that posture, the Indo-Pacific region suddenly developed a reputation for China, which has a plan to dominate Southeast Asia through conquest, taking their lands and occupying the targeted sovereign states with a principal government to whom they report back. A perfect example is China's decision to coerce Taiwan into submission. Beijing has completely ramped up its intensity to take over the South China Sea via maritime dominance. The Taiwanese president, Lai Ching-te, who has leaned more towards the West for assistance, including the United States, angers China with their decision to keep bridging the all-powerful West into Indo-Pacific regions, making conquest harder than it used to be in the past. In a recent speech at the 2025 Shangri-La Dialogue, the United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth told the audience that China's attempt to conquer Taiwan by force could be imminent. Although China has made no comment about the situation escalating towards an all-out war, its consistent aggressive movement towards the South China Sea along the Taiwan Strait all points to war. Although Taiwan is not demilitarized like Japan, its army and military might not compare to the huge Chinese military force and their war technology, making any type of war between both countries asymmetrical. Tokyo, which has been watching from the sidelines as militarily vulnerable countries are up for grabs by bigger sovereign states, has kept its cool and continued to honor its agreement with the United States without a fuss. However, their concerns continued to grow in 2014, when the Kremlin annexed Crimea and Ukraine with the aim of taking over the territory and, by extension, all of Ukraine. Little by little, the Japanese government turned up its defense technology, upgrading it to offense. Although there has been no confirmation as to why Tokyo suddenly encouraged a spike in the creation of offensive military weapons, including fighter jets, the consistent threats of being gobbled up by a nation with a stronger military were not an uncommon theme, and they saw it too. Although they had the protection of the United States, other countries under the same type of pressure, particularly Taiwan, also have the protection of the United States, meaning that their military has a divided focus, a gamble that Japan was unwilling to take and would rather find a way to prepare for potential all-out war. By February 24, 2022, Japan's fears were officially confirmed as the world watched Russia take over Ukraine, moving in with military might and watching their fighter jets blow up Ukrainian infrastructure, their economy, and their people, with their biggest blowback being heavy economic sanctions from the United States, who are also trying to negotiate peace with the Kremlin rather than join forces with Ukraine to fight the oppressor. Although it is well documented that the United States has been sending reinforcements to Ukraine, including war funds and military support like the F-16 fighters, the war remains ongoing, and Ukraine seems to be on the losing side despite fighting the war on their own turf. These circumstances were enough to change the posture of the Japanese government towards military improvement. Ergo, in 2023, the Japanese government, supported by the United Kingdom and Italy, came up with the idea of a jointly run operation where they could safely develop a sixth-generation fighter jet that could send a message to other top military nations, including China, the United States, and, more importantly, the Kremlin. The initiative was announced on December 9, 2022, the same year that the Russo-Ukrainian threats of war since 2014 became an all-out war. The initiative creates an avenue for the three countries that are involved to merge their separate sixth-generation projects, which would include the United Kingdom-led BAE Systems Tempest developed with Italy and the Japanese Mitsubishi FX. Although Japan had been technically demilitarized, it kept its defense in check aerially, on the ground, and maritime. Aerially, they created an Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ, a region of airspace in which a country tries to identify, locate, and control aircraft in the interest of national security. It is declared unilaterally and may extend beyond a country's territory to give the country more time to respond to possible hostile forces aggressively without sanctions from any organization. But what makes the Mitsubishi FX, or F3 as it is called unofficially, so special that it is added as a potential study guide for a new next-generation jet? The Mitsubishi FX is a technology developed out of necessity by local Japanese companies, especially since the United States stopped the export of the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor to foreign nations, which included Japan, which did not have the military to defend itself in the first place because it had been demilitarized by the United States. Caught in this dilemma, Tokyo responded by building a domestically developed fighter jet to replace the F-22, which was no longer an option for them. Between 2009 and 2010, Tokyo delved deep into research on the latest fighter jets at the time, but decided against building the exact same things and instead looked to create something about a generation higher. It was no longer just about defense. It was about proving a point to the United States, which had faltered in its promises to help rebuild an aging air fleet that needed to be changed as quickly as possible. Following their research, they came up with the I-3, which translates to Informed, Intelligent, and Instantaneous Fighter Jet. Being Japan's first conceptualized fighter jet of the sixth-generation ilk, it was retrofitted with different functionalities, including advanced radar systems to counter stealth technology of other fighters, receiving targeting information from other platforms like drones, fighters, and airborne early warning and control aircraft. Use of flyby optics reminiscent of the Kawasaki P-1 to process information faster, stealth technology, gallium nitride semiconductors to improve radar performance, and a new, more powerful engine that could give it a burst of hypersonic speed, Mach 6 and beyond. While the I-3 could be deemed a successful project, it was not going to be the end-all be-all for Japan. They needed something different, something designed for real air superiority. Enter the FX twin-engine stealth fighter jet. The Japanese Ministry of Defense described it as a technology with sixth-generation abilities. The Japanese Ministry of Defense was very much in a competition with the rest of the world, but mainly the United States, which at the time could boast of one of the biggest fighters in the world, the F-22 Raptor, but it traveled at Mach 2, which is twice the speed of sound. While it could be very much within the scale of the fastest fighters in the world, it was nowhere near the potential of the FX, which was proposed to be 6 times faster than the speed of sound. The FX is said to be bigger than the F-22, which has earned it the nickname Godzilla from Bradley Perrett at Aviation Week. The large size indicates the Japanese Ministry of Defense desires the aircraft to possess a very long range and a large payload capacity, meaning that it can carry much bigger ordnance than the F-22 while traveling at Mach 6 speed, and also be able to hit its target without faltering. It was the game changer. Technologies tested in the X-2 technology demonstrator will likely be incorporated into the FX fighter. Defense Minister Taro Kono has stated that the FX will possess strong network capabilities and will carry more missiles than even the crown jewel of the United States' aviation fleet, the F-35 Lightning II. The FX was a statement design that repelled almost everything the Raptor had, ranging from replacing the usage of conventional hydraulic systems with electric actuators. According to Japan's Ministry of Defense's evaluation, the reason for selecting electric actuators over hydraulic systems is because of the complexity of designing the interior of the stealth fighter. However, other than speed, the FX was designed for more. The Japanese Ministry of Defense wanted a jet capable of multiple functions. For some context, there are aircraft that are only capable of hunter missions, meaning that they can only be useful to gather information on the enemy and for surveillance and reconnaissance missions. However, they are also accompanied by a specific aircraft that does the job of aiming and firing at targets, called a killer. Hence, should there ever be a need to scout for problems and take them out immediately when the opportunity arises, the military sends the hunter and killer aircraft, with one primed to take out the target and the other tasked with identifying the target. However, when designing the stealth shape of the FX, the internal weapon bay and intake air ducts must be accounted for. Consequently, problems arise with installing hydraulic system piping due to design considerations such as rigidity and length. Hence, the reason that they adopted electric actuators, as they work with wires instead of pipes, eliminating the constraints once and for all. This results in simplified installation and reduced restrictions, allowing more flexibility in designing the body of the aircraft. But what really makes the FX special is its lightweight. Imagine an aircraft so big it is called Godzilla, weighing just a little more than a Raptor, even though it is considerably bigger. This was exactly what the Japanese aircraft developers were willing to achieve. Ergo, they tweaked the manufacturing design so far from the conventional designs. For some context, regular aircraft are mostly built using fasteners like bolts, screws, and nuts together to put up composite materials during construction. However, the FX designers took care of the extra weight from the fasteners by using adhesive glue to join composite materials together. This method is dubbed the integrated fastenerless structure technology. Although the fastenerless technology took a bit of weight away, the real chunk of weight is taken away by the use of lighter building materials like aluminum alloys and carbon fiber reinforced polymer. But the question is, if an aircraft is going to be flying at an unconventional speed of Mach 6 and above and in full flight, how do the softer materials like the carbon fiber reinforced polymer and aluminum alloys handle the heat that comes from the friction when the aircraft flies at that speed without getting burnt? Owing to the use of materials like carbon fiber reinforced polymer and alloys, the Japanese designers employ a heat shield technology, meaning that they add a component designed to protect an object or a human operator from being burnt or overheated by dissipating, reflecting, or absorbing heat. The Japanese Ministry of Defense's research team believes that the new design methods that help reduce the weight of the aircraft not only shorten the required working man-hours by 66%, but also propose a bit of a solution for the avionics system. The avionics of this aircraft centers around its hunter-killer enablers, ranging from its navigation system to radar systems and sensors. To help the aircraft avoid detection, enabling its hunter version, the engineers equipped it with top-class sensors like an active electronically scanned array, or AESA radar, a passive radio frequency, or RF sensor, and an infrared camera. The active electronically scanned array sensors are a game-changing radar technology that is powerful enough to track even stealthy aircraft without getting caught. Also, the aircraft is fitted with radio frequency, or RF sensors, which activate the aircraft's radio and use it to pick up signals and information without sending out its own signal, making it nigh undetectable to most Hunter aircraft. But for an aircraft that flies at Mach 6, how does it sustainably protect its heat signature from Hunter aircraft with infrared technology completely capable of reading heat signatures, especially from an air beast that big? The fighter is equipped with cooling systems around the avionics to reduce the heat that comes from the surface, keeping potentially large hotspots cool enough to avoid infrared detection. But it gets even better with the specially coated painting in pitch black that not only blends properly into the night sky, but also absorbs, spreads, and dispels the heat that comes from the friction of the aircraft, speeding at 6 times the speed of sound against the air. While its Hunters are perfectly on display, the aircraft is retrofitted with an ASM-3, a supersonic anti-ship missile being developed by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries to replace the ASM-1 and ASM-2 missiles, and also microwave weapons, or direct energy weapons in more popular parlance. Microwave weapons are the next level of fighter jet armament, as they are capable of ranged weapons that damage their targets with highly focused energy without a solid projectile, including lasers, microwaves, particle beams, and even sound beams. While it has not been actively found in use by most top militaries around the world because of its unpredictability, especially when aiming for a smaller and moving target, potential applications of this technology include weapons that target personnel, missiles, vehicles, and optical devices, now in the FX. While the Hunter killer missions are nigh perfectly suited to this aircraft, the Japanese history with war, which includes heavy losses of lives in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, prompted them to find a different solution when this aircraft is in use. Ergo, to reduce losses, they decided on introducing an unmanned combat aerial vehicle that can operate significantly beside the FX. Think of it as a shadow bodyguard that will be called the Combat Support Unmanned Aircraft, which would be responsible for carrying even more sensors and radars, making it easier to spot targets, or more importantly, threats to the pilot's life while he flies the FX. This wingman style is not too dissimilar from the Kratos XQ-58 Valkyrie or Boeing Air Power Teaming System project, where the drone acts as the loyal wingman to the aircraft. While the wingman drone to finally complement the FX is not touted to be available until the 20s, the FX has definitely started to ruffle feathers in Eastern Europe, particularly Russia. Although the Kremlin remains stuck in a loop of asymmetrical warfare with Ukraine over their decision to join forces with the West and sign up for membership as a part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, the course of the war could suddenly change when Japan completes the FX project. While it is unclear why Japan might be interested in picking a side in the Russo-Ukrainian war, the United States, which has already picked a side, Ukraine's in the war, holds a lot of sway in Japan, a country where they have military bases and where they are owed some respect because of Pearl Harbor in Article 9 of the post-war Constitution. Ergo, it isn't so hard to infer that they might influence Japan into equipping Ukraine with an FX, changing the landscape of the war completely. Whether Japan decides to support Ukraine with its new fighter jet, adding a new complexion to the war, or simply stays away from the Eastern European forces, remains to be seen. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.